So it's time to settle. You already have your final report and your attorney is already negotiating with the defense to get your case closed. But then your attorney comes to you and says, oh dear, you need an MSA. And your settlement goes, we're talking about that right now. Hi, I'm Naomi from Gonzalez Law, empowering Californians through legal education. So today we're starting our series on Medicare Set Aside's MSAs. In video 1, we're going through what is an MSA, how it affects you, and how it affects your settlement. In video 2, we're talking about how to set up an MSA. In video 3, we're talking about how to maintain an MSA and close it out. In video 4, we're talking about costly mistakes to avoid. So I'm here with Colleen and Andre from MSA Meds. They are founding partners, and Colleen is also the in-house counsel for MSA Meds.
Thank you, Naomi. We're very happy to be here today to try to make Medicare set-asides a little less confusing for injured workers.
Thanks, Naomi. We're here to help you through all this and figure it out with your audience.
So the first question is, what is an MSA?
A Medicare set-aside is a special allocation that Medicare requires that projects the injured worker's future medical treatment, and this is something that's done in conjunction with a workers' compensation settlement.
In layman's terms, that means?
It's money you don't get to spend. A Medicare set-aside is the amount of money that Medicare determines you need to spend before they're going to start paying the bills for your work injury.
So what you're saying is the MSA is part of your settlement, but it's a pot of money that you can't touch for anything but your future medical, and it gets set aside only for the future medical.
Correct.
So how did this come about?
Medicare realized a long time ago that they're running out of money. So as a way to stop that, they realized that sometimes in work comp settlements and other settlements, the burden of medical treatment was being pushed onto Medicare inappropriately. This was called cost shifting, and in about 2001, something called the Patel Memo came out, which changed the face of settlements, and it hasn't been the same ever since.
So does everyone need a Medicare set-aside when they're settling their work comp case?
If they're old enough or hurt enough.
So if you're already a Medicare beneficiary and your settlement is $25,000, then you need to submit an MSA to Medicare. If you're not already a Medicare beneficiary and your settlement is over $250,000 and you could become a Medicare beneficiary within 30 months, then you also have to submit an MSA.
So what you're saying is if I'm on Medicare and I settle a case for too much money and I'm not on a Medicare set-aside, then my medical won't be covered by Medicare?
Correct. At the time of settlement, your attorney has to report what your injury is to Medicare, and then they put a flag on your file, and anytime they receive any doctor bills for that injury, they will deny it because you should have paid that from your Medicare set-aside.
So how do Medicare set-asides complicate settlement?
Well, typically, it means that most people can't spend the entire amount of money that they're expecting in their settlement. And it's also something that at the end, right at the end, when you think you're going to be done with this whole situation, it kind of lands like a bomb.
Well, Medicare has a review process that the attorneys have to go through in order to satisfy Medicare's interest. So they'll hire a vendor who comes up with a report, and then that report is submitted to Medicare for their approval, and that whole process can take some time and delay a settlement.
So what I see happening most often and where it comes into play, where we're ready to go through settlement, but all of a sudden we find out that we need an MSA. Maybe we didn't know that the client was a Social Security disability recipient, or that they've already passed the threshold, whatever it might be, and now our settlement comes to an abrupt halt. Because we have to wait to get that MSA report, and from there, we have to get the settlement finalized. So there's two ways of doing that, and one of them you need to try to avoid.
There's two different options after you have your Medicare set-aside. The first is to submit it to Medicare and get their approval on the amount. And they will either say, we agree with the future projection of the medical costs, or we don't agree and we think this other amount of money has to be put aside. If you go through that process and then you run out of money down the road, Medicare comes in and pays bills, and you're completely covered, and that is the safest method possible. Insurance carriers sometimes will try to put pressure on you to do a non-submission MSA where they come up with a number based on a vendor that they hire, and they say, we're not going to go through Medicare. And that's usually because they know Medicare wouldn't approve the number, and they tell you to just set that amount aside and that you'll be okay. Medicare, however, takes the position that if you don't submit, then they are able to come back and say, no, the whole entire amount of your settlement is the amount that should have been set aside, and you have to spend down that amount of money before we're going to pay bills. So there's really a huge risk if you do a non-submit MSA.
For example, let's say your settlement is $50,000, and of that, $30,000 is at MSA. You might submit that to CMS, and Medicare goes, that's right, that's a good amount. And they say yes, and then you can go ahead and finalize your settlement. But they might say, hold on here. Really, it should have been $40,000, not $30,000. Then you're going to have to renegotiate your settlement, and then it's going to be able to get more money for your future medical. Colleen was saying is if you don't submit it to CMS ahead of time, they might take the whole $50,000 for the MSA. So that's why you need to be very careful and not do that. Okay, so one of the things that can really, really slow down the settlement is getting that approval from CMS. Because the way it works is either your attorney or the defense attorney will give all of the information to Medicare. Medicare is the government, so they take some time. They're going to look at everything and go, oh, you know what? I'd like to see this document. And so then the attorney will say, okay, they'll try to get that document. They might have to subpoena records. They send it back. And then they'll say, oh, thanks, but I also want to see this. And so then the process goes back and forth. And every time that there's back and forth, it adds another 30 days for them to process it again. So that's why it could take some time. It can be anywhere from 2 months. We've seen it over a year. You're not going to get your settlement done right away. It does have to get pre-approved first. So we keep talking about this MSA report, which says what you need for future medical, but how is it that they know? How is that calculated?
Well, the MSA allocation report is usually prepared by a vendor that the insurance company hires, and their goal is to get the lowest number possible to get it approved by Medicare to keep the settlement dollars that the insurance company has to pay low. It should be a very fair projection of what all of the future care for the work injury is going to cost, but sometimes there's ways that they can make that number lower than it should be. So what we recommend is that once you get that report from the insurance carrier, you give us a call so that we can look at that report and we can tell you if it's actually fair or if the number should be higher. Because then your attorney can take that information that we give them and go back to the insurance company and make sure that they negotiate a settlement that's fair for you.
You can look us up on the website at msameds.com. or give us a call, 855-MSA-MEDS.
And if you would like to talk to us about your workers' comp case, text us consult and we'll be very happy to talk to you. So if you would like to know how to set up your MSA, look at this video right here. And don't forget to press like so more people can be empowered.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Naomi from Cal. And energy up, guys. Woo.